All right. Let's jump into this deep dive. And we're tackling maintenance types today. We're talking breakdown maintenance, we've got preventive maintenance, and then there's that really interesting world of predictive maintenance. And we're going to break it all down for you.
Yeah, and our goal here is to help you figure out not just what these types are, but really which ones matter most to you.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We got to start with the one that, well, a lot of people might be doing already without even realizing it, breakdown maintenance. It's that classic, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of deal. But instead of, that squeaky door you keep meaning to get to, we're talking about important machinery here. So is just reacting to every problem really the way to go when you've got valuable equipment on the line?
Well, that's where it gets interesting, right? The source we've been looking at, it points out that breakdown maintenance, sure, it seems easy, and it can be cheap, at least, up front. But it can seriously backfire, big time. I mean, think about it. Unplanned downtime, that throws a wrench in everything, especially in a busy factory setting. Not to mention the safety risks if equipment just fails out of the blue.
And let's be real, those emergency repairs, those don't come cheap.
No, they don't. You're exactly right. Those costs can really stack up compared to, well, just some regular maintenance.
Yeah, way more expensive than those oil changes you've been putting off, huh?
Speaking of, that's a great example from the source, actually. Engine oil. Think about waiting to change it until it's like sludge. That's a recipe for disaster. You're talking huge repair bills, maybe even a whole new engine.
Ouch. So much for saving money, and I can only imagine what a disaster like that would mean for something as complex as like a whole production line in a factory.
Oh, absolutely. Every minute that line's down, that's money flying out the window.
And in some places, like if we're talking power plants or hospitals, breakdowns, those aren't just about money, right?
The stakes are way higher. We're talking about essential services.
So breakdown maintenance may be okay for like really small stuff, but anything important sounds like a recipe for a disaster. So what if we flip the script? What about a more proactive approach? That's where preventive maintenance comes in, right? The whole regular checkup philosophy.
Right on. It's about having a system, a planned maintenance system, PMS, as they call it. It's like scheduling your annual checkup, but for your equipment.
Yeah.
Catch those issues before they become big problems.
So instead of waiting for the breakdown, you're trying to, get ahead of it? Sounds like a smart move, but what are we actually doing here?
Well, the source gets into the nitty-gritty. Routine inspections, that's big. Looking for wear and tear, or screws loose, any leaks, cracks. Gotta catch those early. And then there's the basics, routine servicing. Oil changes, filter swaps, all that good stuff that keeps things running smooth.
It's like giving your machines a little TLC, right? Like I do with my bike, gotta keep it tuned up.
Exactly. And lubrication. Can't forget that. Keeps those moving parts happy. And, gotta check those fasteners. Imagine a whole machine goes down because someone forgot to tighten a bolt.
Oh, that's every factory manager's nightmare.
Yeah.
So this PMS thing sounds like a much smarter way to handle things, being proactive about it. But I'm guessing there are downsides here too, right?
Well, yeah, nothing's perfect. One thing the source pointed out is that it can be a lot of work, especially for big operations, lots of equipment. And you also might end up doing maintenance that you don't need to do yet.
You mean like replacing parts too early before they actually need a replacing?
Yep, playing it safe, but it costs you. And here's the other thing. Even if you're doing everything right, those PMS checkups, you're still not totally safe from those big, unexpected breakdowns.
Wait, really? Even if you're doing everything by the book, what's the deal with that?
Things break. That's just how it goes with machines. You can do your checkups, but you can't catch everything. Sometimes it's just bad luck.
Huh. Sobering thought. It's like even if you're healthy, you can still get sick, huh?
Exactly. You're managing risk, not eliminating it.
Yeah.
So yeah, preventive maintenance is a step up, for sure. Way better than just waiting for stuff to break. But it's not foolproof.
So if even with preventive maintenance, we can't totally dodge those breakdowns, what's next? There's got to be a way to get ahead of the game, right?
That's where predictive maintenance comes in. And this is where it gets really cool. We're not just reacting here or even sticking to a schedule. We're talking about using data to make smart decisions about maintenance.
Okay, now this is what I'm talking about. I love a good tech solution. So how does it work? Are we talking like AI taking over and monitoring our machines for us?
Not quite AI overlords, but we are talking about giving our machines a voice. Basically, we use sensors, and then all that data they gather, we analyze it to get a read on the machine's vital signs, all in real time.
So instead of guessing when something might break, we're using hard data.
You got it. And our source talks about some pretty amazing tech being used here. Vibration analysis, thermography, oil analysis. It's like we're giving our machines a full physical.
Those sound pretty high-tech, gotta admit. Walk me
Mm.
through how those work. Let's start with vibration analysis. What's that all about?
Imagine you can hear a machine starting to have a problem, even if it's just a tiny change in the way it sounds. That's kind of what vibration analysis does. It uses sensors, accelerometers, things like that, to track the vibrations a machine makes while it's running.
So every machine will have its own, like a vibration signature, and any change to that signature, that's a warning sign.
Exactly, like a fingerprint for your machines. Analyze those vibrations, and you can spot things like parts wearing down, things that are loose or misaligned, stuff you might not see just by looking.
That's wild. It's like having a sixth sense, but for machines. Okay, so what about thermography? That one sounds like it's about heat.
You got it.
Hmm.
Infrared cameras are the key here. They let us see heat patterns in the machinery. Every component has an ideal temperature it should be operating at, and if we see something off, well, that's a red flag.
So if something's running harder or even colder than it should, that means there's a problem somewhere.
You got it. Like taking your machine's temperature. Hotspots can tell us about electrical problems, maybe a lubrication issue, even blockages in pipes. The source even talked about using it to find loose connections in electrical systems. Catch those before they cause a fire.
Wow. Talk about preventing disaster. Okay, last one, oil analysis. Now, I know from my car, dirty oil is never a good sign.
Same principle applies to big machines. We're talking about taking regular oil samples, kind of like a blood test for your equipment, and then we analyze those samples, looking for wear particles, contaminants, anything out of the ordinary.
So we're not just checking the oil level anymore, we're looking at what's in the oil itself.
Exactly. Certain particles will tell us if specific parts are wearing down. Changes in the oil can tell us about lubrication issues, even if there's something contaminating it. It's amazing how much information you can get from a little bit of oil.
This is really blowing my mind. So using these techniques, predictive maintenance gives us a much clearer picture of what's going on. We're not just guessing anymore. We're making decisions based on what the data is telling us.
And that leads to some big advantages. The source talked about things like components lasting longer, less downtime, and lower costs in the long run. Catch those issues early, and you're not just preventing a breakdown, you're making your equipment last longer.
So less downtime, lower costs, machines that last longer. Sounds like a win-win-win to me. But this all sounds very high-tech. It can't be cheap, right? What are the downsides here?
You're right, it's not free. You've got the initial investment in the sensors, the software, the training. That can be a barrier, especially for smaller companies.
So it's a bigger commitment than just doing breakdown or even preventive maintenance.
It is. And you need people who know how to interpret all that data, right?
Yeah.
Got to make sure you're making the right decisions based on what the data is saying. But here's the exciting part. Technology is always advancing, and it's becoming more affordable all the time. We're seeing predictive maintenance becoming more accessible to more businesses. And when you look at the big picture, all those cost savings from avoiding downtime and those major repairs, it starts to make a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes got to spend money to save money in the long run, right? Especially when it means your stuff keeps running and lasts longer. Makes you think. But okay, we've thrown a lot of info out there, all this tech talk, sensors, data. Let's bring it back down to earth. What does this all mean for the average person? What are the big takeaways here? Absolutely. Let's make it practical. When you're thinking about these different maintenance types, whether it's your car, washing machine, or a whole factory, first thing is, well, what are you really worried about?
Right, like is it all about saving money? Or maybe it's making sure things never break down. Or is it safety that's top of mind?
Exactly. If you can't afford any downtime, then you got to be more proactive. Preventive maintenance, predictive maintenance, those might be worth the cost.
And it's not just what we want, right? It's what we're dealing with. Our source made a good point. You don't need the same fancy monitoring for a toaster oven as you would for, like, a giant industrial robot.
Right. Got to find that balance. And here's the thing. Even if you've got the most advanced predictive maintenance system out there, you can't predict everything.
Yeah.
Things happen, parts wear out, sometimes it's just bad luck.
So even with all this data, we're still, managing the risk, not getting rid of it completely. There's still a human element to all this.
100%.
Yeah.
We still need people who know what they're looking at, who can understand the data, figure out what's wrong, and make those judgment calls. Which actually brings us to a really interesting question for everyone listening. How do you see predictive maintenance changing as technology keeps getting better?
Yeah, it makes you wonder, will we get to a point where nothing ever breaks down? Or will there always be a need for that human touch, that expertise to keep things running?
It's a big question as we move into this future of, like you said, smart machines and making decisions based on data. It's
Yeah.
exciting to think about.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into maintenance types. We covered it all, from breakdown to preventative to predictive maintenance. Hopefully you've got a better handle on what each one is good at, what the downsides are, and most importantly, how to choose what works best for you. Let us know what you think. Are we on the verge of a breakdown-free world? Until next time, keep those gears turning.